Mi nombre es Nemonte Nenquimo. Soy una mujer guaraní que vengo del Ecuador de la Amazonía. Tenemos amor, tenemos respeto. Nosotros, con la tierra madre, consideramos que la madre es una mujer que nos da vida, que nos da amor, que nos da protege, que nos da cariño.
Nemonte Nenquimo represents the Guarani people of Amazonian Ecuador, whose land is being invaded by oil companies, missionaries, and paramilitary. She's a 38-year-old environmental activist who won the prestigious Global Goldman Prize for her work fighting against the industrial exploitation of the Amazon through rubber tapping, deforestation, and oil extraction. She advocates for her people, the indigenous Guarani, their land and environment, and for women more broadly, which has made her a global ecofeminist icon. There were planes and helicopters that came from faraway places, the oil companies coming with promises of clothes and money, she says. I'd hear the elders saying they're going to spear them and fight them. There was an idea that there was going to be conflict with these companies. Born into a cultural conflict, Nenquimo grew up constantly surrounded by the threat of violence. As a child, she was forced to attend missionary schools, where she was taught that her Guarani people, culture, and essence stemmed from the devil, and that Jesus was the only way for her and her people to be saved from savagery. The missionary schools served to strip her of her identity, her ties to the land and her ancestors, which made her complacent to exploitation. In these schools, she was repeatedly sexually assaulted by its leaders. It was a profound trauma for me that I buried for a long time, Nenquimo says. In my world, there wasn't a culture of rape or abuse of little girls or little boys. If that ever happened, the person who did that would be spear-killed. The missions know about it, and they know how to hide it very well. It's a very strong rage that I feel. I finally decided it was time to tell my story. To tell stories is to be strong, she continues. I'm telling my story so that everybody in the world, the women, shouldn't stay quiet. It's very important to talk about the topic of abuse. Through all the hardships she endured, what shines through Nemonte is an unrelenting ability to care for others, a trait that is seen with women environmental activists like Wangari Maathai and Meda Patkar. She resisted the immense pressures of shame brought out by missionary leadership and used her voice, her most powerful tool, to show other women that they are not alone and that they too can be strong. Through suffering, she was born a leader.
Nemonte represents indigenous people's rights to their land, culture, bodies, and most of all, she represents
Muchas de las
forest.
veces los extractivismos, los capitalismos, el gobierno dicen los indígenas son ignorantes. Nosotros, los pueblos indígenas, sabemos por qué está ocurriendo ese cambio climático. Sabemos por qué estamos dañando, estamos destruyendo nuestro planeta. Por eso nuestro principio es seguimos respetando la selva.
Mining, or most recently, oil extraction. When oil was discovered underneath Amazonian lands in 1968, the Ecuadorian government, supported by international oil conglomerates, dissected the rainforest into violently geometric blocks in order to lease them to oil companies. Many of these blocks infringed upon established indigenous communities' ancestral lands. For example, Block 22, which was auctioned off in 2018, intersected with vast swaths of Guarani land. Through combined military and missionary efforts, the outsiders sought to divide and subjugate the indigenous people who stood in their way. They chased after capital accumulation at any cost. Right from the very first moments of contact, the companies created divisions between our clans, Nenquimo says. That continued throughout the invasion of the oil companies. Oil companies incited conflict within Waorani society by offering men wages for cooperation, both ensuring economic dependence and disrupting long-established gender relations. For centuries, Waorani women served as leaders of their communities, yet when the men became the sole source of economic resources, the framework of a patriarchy was incited, forcing Waorani women into subjugation. Much of the conflict between the Waorani people and outside powers comes down to conflicting social constructs. While Western society conceives of a division between that which is human in nature, between body and world, Waorani constructs do not separate the body from the land, the soul from the body. To Western companies, the forest is not a home or an extension of the body and spirit, but a cache of capital potential. To Nemonte, when you abuse the land, you abuse her body. When the forest is sick and wilting, her body is sick and injured.
Nemonte met her husband Mitch Anderson through his work as an American environmental activist, and together they formed Amazon Frontlines in order to garner further awareness from international allies. Contrasting her ancestors' physical battles through spears and bodies, Nenquimo uses her voice as her most powerful weapon against the outside forces, transitioning into a period of ideological and representative battle. Digital media serves an integral piece in the strategies of Nemonte and her people, as it both spread the words and images of Waorani resistance, but served to challenge the Western constructs of indigenous primitivism. Amazon Frontlines was also used to fight development through the digital mapping of Waorani territory, translating inherited oral knowledge into a physical readable document. Under the Ecuadorian constitution, developing companies need the informed consent of any inhabitant they infringe upon. And this legal precedent is what Nemonte and her movement have used to fight the oil companies. In 2019, Nemonte served as the head plaintiff representing her people in Ecuadorian courts, dressed in red face paint, a feather crown, and spear. Nemonte effectively saved her people's land and 500,000 more acres of land from development by forcing the government to adhere to the very rules they established. Although this is a landmark case in indigenous land rights, it shows that a right is not given, but needs to be fought for.
Nemonte Nenquimo and her community's victory in securing their land's rights serves as a powerful example for how other local groups defending their home may amplify their voices. Digital media can be effectively used as a weapon against environmental injustice and colonialism. There is no longer a physical barrier as to how far people's voices can reach, and the voice of just one can reach millions. Nemonte is not only saving her people and land, but the precious biodiversity harbored within the Amazon rainforest. Empowered by the Waorani case, her advocacy for global unity against climate degradation calls not only on the local peoples, but humanity as a whole. The struggle to defend one's rights is a universal one that has been echoed throughout history, and Nemonte's fight is no different. However, it is a continuous fight to protect their homes and rights. The court case win was effective, but the major problems surrounding Amazonian deforestation are very persistent. This is an effort that will require the voices of thousands, or even millions, to completely stop. You can support Nemonte and Amazon Frontlines by amplifying her voice through your own social media, as well as donating to their fight on AmazonFrontlines.org. If anything is to be taken away, it's that Nemonte's cause has shown how far the power of unity can reach, and you can be a part of that power.
Yo estoy segura que ahora estamos esa oportunidad de escucharnos, de respetarnos, de hacer aliados, juntar para el nuevo de bienestar de todo para mis hijos, para sus nietos.